Rust Never Sleeps, I think, is probably the most pivotal album in Neil Young's career. I mean, if you compare it to the album before that, Comes a Time, they couldn't be more different. And I think it's symbolic of what was going on at that time, because everything in the 70s when Neil Young was very popular was singer-songwriters. That was very popular. Then all of a sudden, the late 70s, punk rock hits, and the singer-songwriters in many ways became obsolete. And a lot of Neil Young's peers never quite got over that. I don't think Stephen Stills or Graham Nash or David Crosby ever really were as relevant after punk rock as they were before it. But Neil Young, he was able to see what was going on and to make a record that sort of translated what was going on and defined it. And it showed that Neil Young was more than just some old sensitive folkie. He understood what rock and roll meant, and he could look at what was going on with punk rock and show that it's all rock and roll. And I think that's what was important about that album. I think it made a transition from his early days to his later career, and I think that's what kept him alive artistically.
Rust Never Sleeps was an album which made him many new fans among a new generation, kind of between the punk and grunge kind of eras.
Another thing that Neil Young has always done is, stay abreast of change. He's always been determined not to sort of be left behind or be some sort of classic rock dinosaur. So he's quite cannily always allied himself to whatever's kind of going on. He keeps himself young in that way.
What it was another great left turn. I mean, you got part of it acoustic, part of it electric, and wow, was it ever electric in some spots. And Neil, again, just throwing us another curve, another left turn, unexpected, but I think definitely a classic.
Rust Never Sleeps. I remember that summer really well. A bit of acoustic Neil, a bit of heavy-duty rocker Neil, Crazy Horse, and were they crazy? This is a great album. A really, really great album.
A lot of people were kind of confused by what was happening with punk rock. They read about these bands that, they were being spit at by the audience and they were wearing safety pins. And a guy like Neil Young, a lot of people were comfortable with Neil Young because he was a folkie. And Neil Young wrote this song, It's Better to Burn Out Than It Is to Rust, and he talked about Johnny Rotten. And I think he basically said, this is rock and roll. This is what I was doing when I started, and this is what they're doing now.
Into the Black. First track, first side, Into the Blue, acoustic. Last track, Into the Black. It's cranked up. The lyrics just slightly rewritten, but it's cranked up heavy duty. Sounds so great. And it's probably one of the most concise songs written about the entertainment industry. Turn it up loud. Have a listen to it.
Kurt Cobain famously quoted Neil Young's Into the Black in his suicide note, quoted lines from that, "It's better to burn out than to fade away," which gives it added poignancy and resonance, and obviously then a generation, a multitude of Nirvana fans who perhaps weren't familiar with the song and with the album wanted to go back and find out what it was about and what had turned Kurt on to it so much.
It's this, guns, and it seems to have this sort of Civil War theme going on.
They are, under threat, and there are muskets, and what exactly is going on, and what a great name for a track. It's just sort of Neil doing what only he can, which is creating a sense of the American past that's very vivid, that sort of pioneer period, and it's just got some great kind of guitar phrasing on it that keeps you kind of hooked in. It's not got a particularly knockout chorus. It doesn't need one. It's kind of, it's that sort of dragging, slow, electric Neil Young that you know, that just defines what he is.
A part of his style that may not suit everybody, and I think he just likes to go. I don't think he wastes a lot of time listening to his recordings over and over and changing them and tweaking them. He just likes to get in there and perform and make these albums and get them out. And that makes for some odd albums. Sometimes you've got an album that's, you know, Rust Never Sleeps, which is a beautiful, big, great album. And other times you get an album like Reactor, for example, which is still, I think, a great album, but it's not going to appeal to everybody.